Keeper of the Lost Cities, Flashback, Chapter 15. How long have I been asleep? Fitz asked, his voice crackly from all the days without use. His expression was still sleepy and clueless, hair tousled, eyes blinky, lips stretching into wide yawns, and Sophie hated to strip away that innocence. But she scraped together the courage. We'll get to that question in a minute, Owen interrupted, as he rushed to Fitz's side and slipped on his special glasses. First, I need to check a few things to make sure you're really up for that conversation. Why wouldn't I be? Fitz asked, aiming the question at Sophie. What aren't you telling me? A lot, she admitted, as Owen snapped his fingers and flashed one of those layered light orbs around Fitz's chest. Time crawled by. 43 endless seconds before Owen stepped back, scratching his forehead, and said, Well, it's probably safe to tell him about the echoes. Probably, Sophie said in the same breath that Fitz asked, Echoes? Elwyn shrugged. No guarantees when it comes to any of this. And yes, he told Fitz, you're going to hear a lot about echoes, and something called shadow flux, but I'll admit I don't really know how to explain it. He gave Sophie a care to take it from here look. She pulled Ella from her tangled blankets, needing something to hold on to. It's weird and confusing, she warned, then chose each word carefully, trying to soften the blow while still making the situation clear. The only part she glossed over was the monster, since that was her battle, and she tried to focus on how strong his vitals were. But Fitz still looked shadowed and pale when she'd finished. So, he said, tracing a finger over the bandage covering his chest, there's something wrong with my heart. Not necessarily, Elwyn corrected. All we know is that shadow flux left an echo there. We don't know what that means or when it will fade. That's why we kept you sedated. Fitz swallowed hard. And how long have I been out? Elwyn and Sophie shared a look. About 2 weeks, Elwyn said. 2 weeks? Why, He clutched his chest and rolled onto his side as much as his bandage would allow. What's wrong? Sophie asked, as a struggling groan poured from Fitz's lips, and Elwyn flashed a purple orb around him. No idea, Elwyn admitted, flickering through several more colors before he told Fitz, I need you to talk to me. I can't see this kind of pain, so you're going to have to tell me what you're feeling. It's not pain, Fitz gritted out, his hands curling into fists. It's more like pressure, like my heart is pushing against my ribs. Your pulse is also racing, Elwyn noted. So let's try deep breaths, like this. He sucked in long breaths and slowly let them go. Again. Sophie joined them, trying to keep her own panic from digging its claws in. Another breath. Another. And Fitz unclenched his fists, reaching to wipe his sweaty brow. I think it's easing up, he rasped, and Sophie blinked hard, fighting the tears of relief gathering in her eyes. Good, then just keep breathing, Elwyn said as he moved to his wall of medicines and studied the newly reorganized shelves. He grabbed 2 vials and headed back, flashing an opalescent bubble of light around Fitz and squinting through his spectacles. I would highly recommend taking this, he said, holding up the midnight blue serum. I'm assuming it's a sedative, Fitz guessed. Elwyn nodded. Then forget it. Fitz, Sophie tried. Forget it. I'm not... Wow, okay, this is not good to get angry. He curled up again, hugging Mr. Snuggles as tightly as he could. He would have looked adorable if his features weren't twisted and sweaty. Remember to breathe, Elwyn told him. Inhale, exhale, repeat. When Fitz's grip on his sparkly dragon relaxed, Elwyn told him, I figured you were going to say that. That's why I also grabbed this. He held up a forest green elixir. I designed this medicine for Caprice Reddick, trying to help her steady her moods. It sadly wasn't strong enough thanks to the complexities of her injuries, and I have no idea if it's the right approach for you, but your emotions seem to affect the echo, so I'll take it, Fitz told him, holding out his hand. A million arguments raged into Sophie's head as she watched him swallow the elixir, but she kept them there, knowing she would have made the same choice. How does that feel? Elwyn asked, flashing a blue orb around him. I really can't tell, Fitz admitted. But after several more seconds, he rolled onto his back, staring at the ceiling. Okay, I think that's better. My chest just feels a little tight right now, and sore. Sophie slumped against her pillow, relief warm and tingly in her head. Is that how it is for you? Fitz asked her. Sort of. It hits me just as fast, and my emotions are definitely triggering it, but I get a headache, and if I'm asleep, the nightmares are... She stopped herself before she could relive any of them. I also get pain in my head, and it can affect how my bones are healing. Unfortunately, it looks like your ribs might have the same issue, Elwyn warned Fitz. That's why you're feeling sore. He switched to a red orb around Fitz's torso and placed his hand on the left side of Fitz's chest. The cracks over here were sealed the last time I checked, and now a couple look like they're refractured. I suppose it's possible the little bit of flailing you did played a part in that, but I have a feeling it was mostly the echo. Don't worry, I can fix it. I can fix all of this. Except the echoes, Fitz mumbled. Yes, those do seem to be out of my control, Owen admitted. The most I can do is keep you sedated so you don't make yourself worse. Fitz shook his head. No more sedatives. Are you sure? Sophie had to ask. Seriously? You're asking me that? I am. She pointed to the pink vials lined up beside her cot. I take one every night before bed. Wow, he whispered. I can't believe you agreed to that. I had to. Otherwise, it's bad. I don't like it, but the never seen got us good this time. Yeah, I guess. He hugged Mr. Snuggles again. But you still only take sedatives at night, so why can't I? You can, Owen jumped in, and you should. But it might not be enough. Honestly, it's not always enough for Sophie. She's had a few close calls, but her echoes are also in her head, so her dreams seem to play the biggest threat. So that's why the sedative I'm taking makes me dream about glitter and dancing animals, Sophie added. I'm pretty sure my brain would explode if I gave it a break from that. Fitz sighed. I hear what you guys are saying, but I don't want to lose any more time. I can't. At least not without trying to manage it. I'll take any elixirs you want. I'll keep my moods even. You can give it a try, Owen told him, but you need to understand the risks. If you get bad news, or something stressful happens, you likely won't be able to control your reaction. And considering the challenges your family is enduring right now... Why would you bring that up? Sophie asked as Fitz sucked in a sharp breath. Because he needs to consider it when he makes his decision. He needs to remember exactly how much turmoil his life is in right now. Fitz gritted his teeth, falling back into the slow, steady breathing patterns as he struggled with Mr. Snuggles. 5 seconds passed, then another 5, but after a few more, the crease between his eyebrows faded. I can handle what's going on with my brother, he promised. I won't let him affect me like that. And if you don't believe me, tell me what's going on with him, and I'll show you I can get through it. I should know anyway. I'm not sure that's a good idea, Sophie warned. Why not? If the echo doesn't freak out, it proves I can handle it. If it does, I guess I'll have to consider more sedatives. It might be a good measure, Owen admitted after a second. Not necessarily, Sophie argued. Everything with Alvar is pretty much the same right now. The council has been waiting to move him to Everglen until Grizzle is healed. Some of the tension faded from Fitz's shoulders. How much longer will that be? Probably pretty soon, Sophie reluctantly admitted. Keith heard that Grizzle's due back from Gildenham any day now. Okay, Fitz said, taking lots of long, slow breaths. Okay, see, I can handle it. What else have I missed? Might as well tell him, Owen told her. He's taking this much better than I would have expected. Of course I am, Fitz said. Mr. Snuggles has my back. He held up the sparkly dragon like it was the ultimate champion. His smile was so bright, so genuine, that Sophie decided to trust it, and shared what Bianca had told her about searching Everglen with Tam and Dex. She also told him that Keith and Roe had done their own investigating. Did any of them search my dad's office? Fitz asked. I'm not sure, Sophie admitted. I forgot to ask. See, he said, this is why you need me. I never said we didn't, she reminded him. I know, he interrupted, his eyes softening as they met hers. I'll be careful, I promise, but I know I can make this work. She hoped so. Do you want me to help Yana so you can ask about your dad's office? She offered. She's going to be so relieved you're awake. Your parents, too. Alden's been hailing me every day for updates, Elwyn agreed. Has he? Sophie asked, unable to hide her relief. I take it that means my parents haven't been visiting, Fitz guessed. Too busy preparing for the murderer's homecoming. You were also asleep, Sophie reminded him. Pretty sure that wouldn't have mattered. It would have, Elwyn insisted. They've been a mess, Fitz, and I'm sure they'll rush right over the second I tell them you're awake. Then can we wait? Fitz asked as Elwyn took out his imparter. I don't think I'm up for a visit yet. I haven't really talked to them since the tribunal, you know? So it's going to be intense. I should probably mentally prepare. Elwyn sighed. I suppose that's smart. But I can't keep this news from them, so how about I tell them you're awake, but I'm not allowing you to talk to anyone or have any visitors until I've figured out how much your emotions can handle. That works, Fitz agreed. Thanks. Elwyn nodded, then headed for his office to hail Alden and Della, but not without strongly suggesting they try to get some rest. Fitz was done resting, though. He had 2 weeks to catch up on, and he wanted to know everything. So Sophie told him what she knew about Bianna's training program, and about her 5 multi-speciesial bodyguards, and about Ro's bizarre reaction to Beau, which they still hadn't gotten the details on. Keith had tried everything he could think of to pry the secret out of her. He'd even been tormenting her with an epic poem he'd written, the Ballad of Beau and Ro, but the princess still hadn't cracked. She also told Fitz about the skill training she'd been working on with Keith, though she left out the part about how most of the tips had actually come from Alvar. And she showed him Cracky and Fluffy and Cheeky and Bitey and Scaly Butt and the Stink, and he agreed that Keith won the prize for his strangest sense of humor. And because Fitz insisted, she also gave him a few more details about her own battle with the Echoes. That's not everything, though, is it? He asked when she'd finished. No, she admitted. She still hadn't told him about the monster. The nightmares, if I talk about them, if I even think about some of them, then don't, he told her. I get it. I'm sure there's probably going to be stuff I can't talk about either. Probably, she agreed. He slumped back against his pillows, letting out the kind of sigh that sounded more like deflating. Well, I guess that means no cognate training, huh? She wanted to deny it, but yeah, at least until the echoes fade. The word killed her a little. She still hadn't given up on her theory that they'd been attacked to hinder their telepathy, but there were too many risks at the moment. I'm sure Keith won't mind letting you join our skill lessons, though, she suggested. Fitz snorted. Great. It's not so bad. I know, it sounds like it'd be a disaster, but the lessons have actually been pretty awesome. I think I might have had a meltdown without them, but don't ever tell him I said that, okay? He'll start wearing tunics that say Foster's Hero or something. Sounds about right, Fitz mumbled. His eyes drifted to her hands, and she realized she was fidgeting with the pins Keith had given her. Well, I'm glad he's been there for you, he said quietly. Me too. The conversation seemed to die there, and Sophie hoped that meant he was going to get some rest. But after a few minutes, he whispered, I heard you, you know. I heard what? When I was still out of it, I heard your voice in my head. I think it's why I woke up. Her face tried its best to burst into flames. Sorry, don't be, he interrupted. I'm glad I'm awake. So am I, she admitted. But you have to be super careful, okay? I will if you will, he made her promise. He waited for her to meet his eyes, and when she did, he gave her the sweetest smile she'd ever seen. By the way, he murmured, pressing Mr. Snuggles against his heart, I missed you too. I've got it, Fitz shouted, and from the way his cot creaked, Sophie was pretty sure there'd been a fist pump along with the words. It? She asked, feeling like she'd missed the first part of the conversation, because she had. She'd been asleep. In fact, her head was filled with ballerina bunnies and punk rock leopards and somersaulting orcas. Sorry, Fitz said, when she rubbed her blurry eyes, trying to smear away the lingering rainbows. My sedative wore off about an hour ago. And that stuff is horrible, by the way. It felt like my brain was barfing glitter. I know, I'm surprised Keith's never slipped any to Ro. Maybe he's saving it for a special occasion, Fitz suggested. Or he's worried the sparkle overload will break her, but I think I sidetracked us. You said you found something? No, I figured something out. He paused, almost like he was waiting for a drum roll before he said, "I know how we can still do some cognate training." Oh, wow, that's great. Her excitement definitely needed some work. "I don't mean a trust exercise," he promised. "I know those are still off the table, but I realized we've been forgetting the basics. Remember when we first started training? Turkin said cognates need trust and balance, and he had us do stuff to try to get my telepathy closer to your level. But your ability still runs circles around mine. And you're an enhancer now, which I'm sure changes things. So I think we should make that our project. Work on basic telepathy skills, both with and without your enhancing, trying to get our ability levels more even. I know that'll benefit me more than it'll benefit you, but it gives us something to do, right? And it's all simple stuff that won't be too exhausting, so I doubt Elwyn will freak out about it." "I wouldn't count on that," Elwyn called from his office. "Oh, come on," Fitz shouted back. "The first thing I want us to try is something Sophie's already doing anyway." "I am?" she asked. "I think so. Don't you check on Silveny and Greyfell every day?" Shame prickled her cheeks. "I'm supposed to." Not only were the Alicorns her close friends, but they were arguably the most important creatures on the planet, thanks to the timeline to extinction, and Sophie had promised the council she'd make sure that both of the incredibly rare creatures were safe and that Silveny's pregnancy was going okay. But with everything that had happened, she'd forgotten. And even before that, Silveny had gotten way more difficult to track down. Half the time, Sophie was pretty sure the stubborn Alicorn was ignoring her, and the few times Silveny did respond, she spent the whole conversation refusing to come for a visit. For some reason, she seemed super paranoid about letting elven physicians check on her baby, and nothing Sophie could say would change her mind. So maybe having Fitz reach out with her would catch Silveny's attention. "I guess we could give it a try," Sophie said, and before she'd even finished the sentence, Fitz was propping himself up to face her. She did the same, wincing, as she waited for her head rush to pass. "You okay?" Fitz asked. "Yeah, just give me a second. This stupid sedative is still getting out of my system." 3 deep breaths got her pulse steady again, and she stretched, feeling her spine pop in several places. She curled her legs to her side and opened her eyes to find Fitz staring at her with his eyebrow practically launching off his forehead. She glanced down, realizing how ridiculous her tunic must look now that she wasn't covered in blankets. It was very red, and very fitted, and very sparkly, and between her hair being pulled into a messy ponytail, and the tunic's missing sleeves, it also didn't feel like nearly enough fabric. "I know I look ridiculous," she mumbled. "Adeline had the gnomes alter some of my tunics I don't like, so they'd fit over my bandages." "Why would she pick tunics you don't like?" "Because they had to ruin them," she said, running her hand over her bare shoulder. Fitz cleared his throat. "I wouldn't call that ruined." He didn't say what he would call it, though, and it made her wish her polyglot ability worked for translating cute boy, so she could figure out if it was supposed to be a compliment. It kind of felt like one. But she was also rumpled and tangled, and it had been at least 2 days since her last sponge bath, so she was pretty sure if she stepped in front of the spectral mirror, Vertina would take one look at her and short-circuit. "Anyway," she said, pulling Ella into her lap to hide behind. "How do you want to do this?" "Hang on," Elwyn told them, barging into the room and stationing himself between them. "No telepathy exercises until you've both had checkups and taken your morning round of medicines. And then plan on me watching you guys to make sure you don't overdo it." There was no point in arguing, though Sophie couldn't help a small protest when he brought over their tray of elixirs, and one of the vials was very yellow and very chunky. "Don't ask," he told her. "Just chug it and don't think about it. And plan on lots of interesting remedies over the next few days. Livia and I talked last night, and we're stepping up our strategy. And I'll be honest, it's not going to taste good, but I think we're onto something this time." The words would have been a lot more encouraging if the new elixir hadn't tasted like chewy sneeze. They both managed to choke it down and passed Elwyn's quick exam. "Okay," Sophie said, turning back to face Fitz. "Now, how do you want to do this?" "I guess just give me permission to enter your mind, and then I'll follow your lead," he suggested. "Works for me." He closed his eyes, and barely a second later, his crisp, accented voice whisked across her consciousness. "Feels like old times, huh?" Sophie smiled. "It does. Someday you're going to have to tell me what you say to make my mind let you in so fast." Her usually impenetrable blocking had a point of trust built into it, a place where someone who knew how to find it could transmit something like a password and convince her mind to pull them past her barricade. Fitz grinned. How about I tell you, when you finally share the secret you've been holding back from me? Walked right into that one, didn't I? You totally did, but don't worry. I know we can't get into any of that right now. They definitely couldn't. Not if Fitz's echo reacted to emotions. Okay, she said. I'm going to try reaching out to Silveny. Brace yourself. I basically have to scream to get her to pay attention to me. Does that mean she's somewhere far away? I think it's mostly that she's avoiding me. She doesn't want me to make her come in and have Vika examine her. Can't blame her for that. I know. Sophie had no idea what that exam would entail, but she imagined it would be very personal. And Vika Hex was the kind of snobby, rude person who deserved to have smelly stuff flung at her head. But she was also the leading expert on unicorn breeding, and since there'd never been a pregnant alicorn before, that made her the most qualified. How far is Silveny in her pregnancy now? Fitz asked. I keep trying to figure that out. I think she's about halfway, which is why I need to get her to come in for that checkup. I can't believe it's been this long and she's never had one. Don't worry, Fitz told her. We've got this. I hope so. You ready? She waited until he nodded before she sent a blaring Silveny into the world. Fitz whistled. I can't believe you could transmit that loud without someone enhancing you. She smiled. I guess the Black Swan designed me to be annoying. Nothing annoying about you. Ah, but see, we've only just begun. Brace yourself. Silveny, please, it's Sophie! And Fitz, he added, then cringed. Wow, that was pathetic. No, it wasn't. He laughed. You forget I can hear your thoughts right now, so I know you agree with me. Her cheeks burned. Well, this is why we're training. Try it again with a little more energy. She sent him a boost from her own mental reserve, and Fitz pressed his hand against his temples, letting his concentration build. Silveny, it's Fitz! Much better, Sophie told him. But it still wasn't enough to convince Silveny to respond. Do you think something happened? Sophie asked, hating to give the question a voice. I doubt it. Silveny would have called for you. I guess, unless she did, and I was sedated. That worry was sharper than the others, the words shaping into claws. You okay? Fitz asked, as she scrambled to bury the monster. I might need to take a break, she admitted, hating herself for the weakness. Is this who she was now? Someone who crumbled at the tiniest obstacle. You're not being fair to yourself, Fitz told her. Just relax and breathe. Let your mind shut down if you need to. I'm going to try one more thing, but I can do it by myself. No worries. What are you going to try? I think it's time to let Silveny worry as much as she's worrying you. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, she warned, but Fitz was already gathering his concentration. Silveny, he transmitted. Please, Sophie needs your help. Still no reply. Now I'm really starting to panic, Sophie admitted, as the monster stirred in the shadows. Her thought was cut short by a terrified mental blast. Sophie okay? Sophie okay? Sophie okay?